Hey there, welcome back to my video series about making a bike frame in my garage. So here I am cutting the miter templates for the down tube. In the last video I went through a similar process with the seat tube, so I sped up the footage of me mitering the down tube just to save a little time. If you haven't seen my earlier videos in the series, go check them out. Again, I'll use the paper template to mark the miter, do a rough cut with the Dremel, smooth it out with a hand file, and finish it on the miter finisher. Speaking of the miter finisher, I got some questions and comments about it from my previous videos, so I took some more footage for this video from a different angle. With the long front end of this frame, I'm using most of the 800mm down tube. Both butts are pretty long, so I just took a little bit off each end. Once again, BikeCAD Pro spits out the numbers for me. The distance between the miters along the bottom of the down tube is 749mm. I usually cut the tube a few millimeters longer, so I have a little wiggle room. Because the down tube has miters on both ends, it's really important to keep the two miters in phase with each other. Otherwise, the head tube and the bottom bracket shell will be out of alignment. This is where the two blocks come in. I put a two block on each end, put the tube on a flat surface, and tighten down the two blocks as evenly as possible. Once the two blocks are on, they don't come off until both miters are completely finished, including the notch for the seat tube. Here I am finishing the bottom bracket shell miter on the down tube. The miter finisher was still set up with the T47 cylinder at 90 degrees from mitering the seat tube in the last video, so I didn't need to adjust anything. BikeCAD Pro also calculates the angle between the head tube and the down tube for me. I then use this little digital angle finder to adjust the rotary table on the miter finisher to the correct angle. I also need to change the abrasive cylinder to match the head tube. On a previous frame project, I forgot to switch cylinders, and I just couldn't figure out why the miter wasn't turning out. Then I realized I'd been using the wrong cylinder the whole time. Now that the seat tube and down tube are all mitered, I need to mark where they meet the bottom bracket shell and where the down tube meets the head tube. I use the jig to hold the tubes and then trace their outlines so I know where to drill the vent holes. My jig isn't designed to hold all the tubes at once. Instead, it holds the tubes in sub-assemblies so that I can do one or sometimes two joints at a time. Here, the jig is holding the seat tube onto the bottom bracket shell. The Sharpie lines are temporary since the tubes will be lightly sanded and cleaned before brazing. So to make a more permanent mark, I add a few punch marks along the Sharpie lines so I know where to locate the tubes for brazing. I also make a punch mark where I want the vent holes to go. You need vent holes at these joints so that the hot air can escape during the brazing process. If there weren't vent holes, the gas pressure inside the tubes would increase as the air gets hotter and hotter during brazing, and the air would try to push out at the joints. When you're trying to get brass to go into the joint, the last thing you need is air pushing the other way. In case you're wondering how cold it was in my uninsulated garage, my cutting fluid turned into a gel. You may have noticed that I put 2 vent holes in the bottom bracket shell for the seat tube and 2 for the down tube. I figure if water gets into the seat tube or down tube, it'll collect at the low points, not on the top of the bottom bracket shell. So a vent hole on the top of the bottom bracket shell isn't very useful for drainage purposes. Each hole is offset so it's closer to the low point inside the joint. There you have it. The down tube is mitered to the head tube and bottom bracket shell, and the vent holes are done for the seat tube and down tube joints. I had wanted to lay out the water bottle bosses and the dropper cable port for this video, but it ended up just getting too cold in the garage. I'll drill the bottle bosses and cable port when it's warm enough to set up my torch and silver braze them all in. If you're interested in following along as I continue building myself a bike frame, hit the like and subscribe button so you'll see the next video when it comes out. Videos are every other week at this point. As the project progresses and my garage gets warmer, I'll try and post more frequently. If you know someone that might like this video, please share it. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time.